Racist doctor attacks black girl, begs for mercy after learning who her dad is. A teenage black girl lay quietly in her hospital bed, recovering from a car accident, when the prestigious doctor assigned to her case began to exhibit increasingly hostile behavior. What initially seemed like cold remarks and rough treatment soon escalated, revealing something much darker. The doctor's racist comments about her kind grew bolder, oblivious to who this girl's father was, a legendary biker whose name commanded respect across the city. As the doctor's prejudiced rant reached its peak, he didn't notice the imposing figure standing in the doorway. Her father had arrived, and what happened next would shake the hospital to its core, ignite a fierce battle for justice, and uncover a systemic pattern of racial discrimination and abuse within the medical industry. The sleek, modern facade of the luxury house was bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun, the expansive glass surfaces shimmering like liquid light. The building was a masterpiece of contemporary design, clean lines, enormous windows, and a minimalist aesthetic that exuded wealth and refined taste. A sprawling driveway, bordered by perfectly trimmed hedges, led to an imposing automatic gate that hummed softly, standing as a silent testament to the family's exclusivity and privilege. Inside, the vast open-concept interiors were eerily quiet. With her father, Adam Carter, a legendary figure in the biker community, away at a major event and her mother tied up on a business trip, 14-year-old Joy Carter was left alone in the grand, meticulously designed house. Even with the presence of household staff, the silence felt heavy, amplifying the contrast between privilege and loneliness. Joy stood just beyond the front entrance, her silhouette illuminated by the soft glow of the strategically placed outdoor lights. Her outfit, stylish yet modest, fluttered slightly in the evening breeze as she smoothed it nervously. Her long hair, styled to perfection, caught the light in soft waves. Excitement buzzed within her, mixed with a hint of nervousness, as she waited for her date. Her thoughts wandered briefly to her father, Adam. A giant in the biker world, his imposing presence and loyalty to his crew were legendary. Despite his busy life, he always found time for her. The thought brought a smile to her face. The hum of an approaching car snapped Joy back to the present. The automatic gate slid open smoothly as Ryan's sleek vehicle pulled up the driveway. Joy's heart raced as he stepped out, perfectly dressed and sporting a carefully styled look. "Hey, Joy," Ryan greeted her, his voice calm and polite. "You look amazing." Joy blushed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Thanks, Ryan. You look great too." As he approached, Ryan's gaze flickered briefly over the grand property. "So, are your parents home?" he asked casually, though his tone hinted at more than curiosity. Joy shook her head. "No, Dad's at a big biker event, and Mom's out of town for work." For a moment, something unspoken flickered in Ryan's eyes, but he quickly masked it with a smile. "Ah, that's too bad," he said lightly. "You know, since the house is empty, maybe we could just stay here instead of going out. We could watch movies or maybe swim in the pool." Joy hesitated, caught off guard. She had been looking forward to their dinner date all week. "I don't know, Ryan," she said slowly. "I was really excited to try that new restaurant downtown." Ryan's charming smile faltered ever so slightly before reappearing. "Come on, Joy, it'll be more fun here. We'll have privacy, and we can do whatever we want." Something about his tone made Joy uneasy, though she couldn't quite place why. Pushing the feeling aside, she chalked it up to first date jitters. "I really appreciate the offer, Ryan, but I'd rather go out," Joy said firmly. "I've been stuck in this house all week, and I'm ready for a change of scenery." For a split second, Ryan's jaw tightened, but he recovered quickly. "Of course," he said smoothly. "Whatever you want." Before leaving, Joy called out to Maria, one of the household staff. "Maria, we're heading out now. I'll be back later tonight." Maria appeared in the foyer, her expression serious as her gaze flickered between Joy and Ryan. "Be careful, Miss Joy. Call me if you need anything." Touched by Maria's concern, Joy nodded. "I will," she said, eager to leave. As she stepped into the warm evening air, she failed to notice the lingering worry etched on Maria's face. Sliding into the passenger seat of Ryan's car, Joy wrinkled her nose. A strange, pungent smell filled the air, mixing something sweet and unsettling. "What's that smell?" she asked, frowning. Ryan glanced at her, a flicker of unease crossing his face before he replied smoothly, "Oh, probably the new air freshener my dad put in. He has a weird sense of smell." Joy chuckled, relaxing as Ryan's charm melted her initial discomfort. "Well, I hope I can survive it," she teased. As Ryan drove, his movements felt slightly exaggerated, and his words slower than usual. Joy was too focused on their conversation to notice his increasingly erratic driving. When Ryan suddenly sped up, the car lurched forward, pressing Joy back into her seat. "Ryan, slow down," she exclaimed, laughing nervously. "This isn't a racetrack." But Ryan only grinned, pushing the accelerator harder. "Come on, Joy. Don't you trust me?" The streets were unusually empty, giving the illusion of safety, but danger was just around the corner. "You know," Ryan said, his eyes lingering on Joy instead of the road for alarmingly long moments. "You're not like other girls. You're cool, you know? You don't judge." Joy felt her cheeks heat up at the compliment, her teenage heart fluttering despite the unease that had started creeping into her stomach. "Thanks, Ryan. I just try to be myself," she replied softly. Their light banter and shared laughter created a fleeting sense of normalcy, masking the growing tension in the car. As Ryan pressed his foot harder on the gas pedal, the speed increased, and the casual conversation began to feel less comforting. Joy's smile faded as her grip tightened on the edge of her seat. The tires screeched when the car swerved abruptly, coming dangerously close to the guardrail. The metallic barrier blurred past her window, far too close for comfort. "Ryan, maybe slow down a little," she said, attempting to keep her tone calm, though her voice trembled slightly. Ryan's grin stayed firmly in place, but his knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. "Relax," he said breezily, though his grip suggested otherwise. "I've got this. Watch this move." With that, he twisted the wheel sharply, attempting to dart between two cars. His overconfidence turned reckless as he miscalculated. The car veered violently, narrowly missing a sedan but cutting directly into the path of an oncoming semi-truck. Time seemed to slow as the massive truck's grille loomed closer, filling Joy's vision entirely. Her heart raced as she tried to scream, but no sound came out. The cacophony of screeching tires and the truck's blaring horn drowned out everything else. The impact came with a deafening crash of crunching metal and shattering glass. The car spun out of control, rolling several times before finally coming to a jarring stop. When everything settled, Joy found herself hanging upside down, restrained by her seatbelt. Through the shattered windshield, she caught a glimpse of Ryan's body lying motionless a few feet away. He had been thrown from the vehicle, having neglected to wear his seatbelt. She tried to move, to speak, but her body refused to cooperate. Distant voices grew louder as people gathered around the wreckage. The last thing she remembered before losing consciousness was the sound of approaching sirens and the sight of strangers peering into the mangled remains of the car. The glaring fluorescence of hospital lights forced her eyes open. The antiseptic smell hit her as she realized she was being rushed down a corridor on a stretcher. Voices surrounded her, urgent but muffled. Female, approximately 14 years old, involved in a high-speed MVA, someone called out. "BP is 90/60 and dropping." Joy wanted to ask what was happening, but her voice was barely a whisper. A nurse leaned over her, her touch gentle. "You're in the hospital, sweetheart," the nurse said softly. "You were in a car accident, but we're going to take good care of you, okay?" As they wheeled her into a bustling emergency room, Joy's mind raced. The accident. Ryan ***, where was he? Was he okay? She wanted to ask but couldn't find the strength. Hours blurred into a series of tests and procedures. Snippets of conversations floated around her. "Any luck reaching her parents?" one voice asked. "Not yet. The father's at a biker event, and the mother's out of town for work. We'll keep trying. Finally, a nurse with warm eyes and a name tag that read Nancy approached her. "Hello, Joy," she said gently. "How are you feeling, sweetie?" I don't know," Joy mumbled. "Everything hurts. Is Ryan okay?" Nancy hesitated, glancing at her colleagues before answering softly. "He's in critical condition, sweetheart. The doctors are doing everything they can." Tears welled in Joy's eyes. "But he's going to be okay, right? He has to be." Nancy took Joy's hand. "We're doing our best, just like we're doing for you. But Joy, there's something else." Nancy's voice dropped as she explained that Ryan had been driving under the influence. The word struck Joy like a blow. The smell in the car, his behavior. It all made sense now, as Joy grappled with the truth, Nancy reassured her. "When the police come to talk to you, just tell them what you remember, okay? Nothing more, nothing less." Joy nodded weakly, her world now weighed down with confusion, guilt, and grief. "I'll be overseeing your care, Miss Carter," Dr. Calloway began, his tone formal. "We need to run a few more tests to confirm you haven't been exposed to any substances and ensure your statement checks out." Joy's brow furrowed in confusion. "But I already told the police. I didn't take anything. I don't do drugs." Dr. Calloway's lips tightened into a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It's standard procedure, I'm afraid. We need to be thorough." As the doctor started preparing for the tests, Joy couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Something about Dr. Calloway's demeanor, a cold detachment, felt off as though it clashed with his role as a healer. The examination began uneventfully enough, with routine checks of her vitals and the usual medical questions. But when he moved to draw blood, his demeanor subtly shifted. His touch turned rougher, his movements less careful. "Ow!" Joy exclaimed as the needle jabbed into her arm with unnecessary force. "Hold still," Dr. Calloway snapped irritably. "It wouldn't hurt if you weren't squirming so much." As he worked, his muttering grew louder, his words clearer, and far more disturbing. "Always the same with your kind," he grumbled, his voice laced with contempt. "Young black teenagers thinking they're invincible. Do you know how many of you end up in my ER every weekend?" Joy's eyes widened in shock, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Excuse me," she said, barely believing what she'd just heard. Dr. Calloway's gaze snapped to her, his eyes cold. "Oh, did I offend you? Well, statistics don't lie, young lady. Your kind is always causing trouble, always draining resources." Tears stung Joy's eyes, but she fought to keep them from falling. She refused to let him see her cry. "That's not true," she said, her voice steadier now. "And you can't talk to me like that. I want another doctor." A cruel smile twisted across Dr. Calloway's face. "Oh, special treatment now, is it? Let me tell you something, girl. You're stuck with me. And I'll make sure we find out exactly what you've been up to tonight." He pressed down unnecessarily hard on the injection site, making her cry out. The malicious satisfaction on his face sent a shiver through her. Suddenly, the door burst open. Adam Carter's towering frame filled the doorway, his large, muscular build a stark contrast to the sterile hospital room. His face, etched with worry and barely contained fury, made the air in the room grow heavy. The doctor's words trailed off mid-sentence as he turned to face Adam, whose reputation as a legendary biker clearly preceded him. The smugness vanished from Calloway's expression, replaced by fear. "What exactly do you mean by your kind, doctor?" Adam's voice was low and deliberate, each word a warning. Dr. Calloway took an involuntary step back, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Mr. Carter, I was just explaining to your daughter the statistical likelihood of, Dad." Joy's voice, filled with relief and the beginnings of tears, cut through the tension. "He's been horrible. He hurt me during the tests, and he kept saying racist things about black people." Adam's blazing eyes locked on the doctor. "Is that right? You've been mistreating my daughter and running your mouth with racist garbage?" Panic overtook Dr. Calloway's face, and he tried to shift the narrative. "Security," he yelled, pressing the emergency button near Joy's bed. "Help! I'm being threatened! I'm coming back for you, Joy, I promise." The car door slammed shut, and Adam watched through the window as the hospital, and his daughter, receded into the distance. The drive to the police station was tense, the silence only broken by the rhythmic hum of the engine. Adam's mind raced with worry for Joy and determination to expose the truth. As the city streets gave way to the stark, imposing facade of the police station, Adam steeled himself for what was to come. He knew the fight was far from over, but for now, he had to play by their rules, at least until he could figure out his next move. The police car came to a stop. As the officers opened the door to lead him inside, Adam took a deep breath. Whatever happened next, he wouldn't rest until justice was served and his daughter was safe. The harsh fluorescent lights of the police station cast an unflattering glow on Adam Carter's face. His large frame looked oddly vulnerable in the sterile environment. The famous biker's usual air of intimidation was replaced by a palpable sense of worry and frustration. Officer Jenkins, a veteran cop who'd seen it all, approached Adam with a clipboard in hand. "All right, Mr. Carter, we're processing your assault charges now. You get one phone call. Make it count." Adam nodded grimly, his mind racing. He knew he needed help, not just for himself, but more importantly for Joy. He dialed a number from memory, praying his old friend would pick up. "Bones, it's Adam. I'm in trouble, brother. I'm at the police station, yes, the one near Metro General. I need your help, and I need a good lawyer." The conversation was brief, but by the end, Adam felt a small measure of relief. Help was on the way. Now all he could do was wait and worry about Joy. As the minutes ticked by, Adam's agitation grew. He paced the small holding area, his mind replaying the events at the hospital over and over. Every time he thought of Dr. Calloway's smug face and racist comments, his fists clenched involuntarily. "Officer!" Adam called out, his voice tight with barely contained emotion. "My daughter's still at that hospital, with that bastard doctor. You've got to do something. She's not safe there." Officer Jenkins looked up from his paperwork, his expression a mix of sympathy and resignation. "Mr. Carter, I understand you're worried, but Dr. Calloway is a respected physician. I'm sure your daughter is receiving the best care possible." Adam slammed his hand against the wall. The sharp crack reverberated down the corridor. Several officers looked up in alarm, their hands twitching toward their radios. His voice roared with anger and desperation, filling the tense air. "You don't understand," Adam bellowed, his chest heaving. "That man is racist. I saw the way he stabbed the syringe into her arm like she didn't even matter. He was saying horrible things to her. You can't just leave her there with him." Before Officer Jenkins could respond, the station door opened, and another officer walked in, looking harried. "Jenkins, you handling the Carter case? I just got back from the hospital. Things are a mess over there." Jenkins nodded and gestured for his colleague to continue. "Well, I was talking to the staff about the accident case, the two teenagers. Anyway, they were discussing the girl's lab result. Apparently, her drug levels were off the charts." The words hit Adam like a physical blow. He stumbled back, shaking his head in disbelief. "No," he muttered. "No, that's impossible. Joy doesn't do drugs. She wouldn't." Officer Jenkins turned to Adam, his expression now one of suspicion. "Mr. Carter, is there something you're not telling us about your daughter's habits?" Adam's face flushed with anger. "My daughter is not a drug user," he shouted. "She's a good kid. Always has been. This is all wrong. I want to see that report." To Adam's surprise, Officer Jenkins nodded after a moment's consideration. "All right, Mr. Carter, I'll get you a copy of the report. But I warn you, if there's evidence your daughter was involved in drug use, it could complicate matters significantly." As Adam waited for the report, his mind raced. He knew Joy better than anyone. She was sweet, naive. The idea of her using drugs was so far from reality that it bordered on absurd. Something wasn't adding up. When Officer Jenkins returned with the lab report, Adam snatched it from his hands, his eyes scanning the document frantically. The numbers meant little to him, but the conclusion was clear. According to the report, Joy had high levels of multiple drugs in her system. But as Adam stared at the document, something caught his eye. At the bottom of the report, prominently displayed, was Dr. Calloway's signature. In that moment, everything clicked into place. The doctor's behavior, his eagerness to paint Joy as a troublemaker, the suspicious lab results, it all pointed to a sinister plot. "This is fake," Adam muttered, his voice low and dangerous. "That bastard, the doctor. He's framing my daughter. He's trying to cover something up." Officer Jenkins looked skeptical. "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Carter. Dr. Calloway is a respected physician." "I don't give a damn about his reputation," Adam roared, causing everyone in the station to jump. "My daughter is in danger, and I'm sitting here while that racist psychopath has free rein to hurt her." Just then, the station door opened again, and a man in an expensive suit walked in, flanked by two intimidating bikers. "Adam Carter?" the man called out. "I'm Attorney James Reeves. Your friend Bones sent me. Let's talk about getting you out of here." As the lawyer approached, Adam felt a glimmer of hope. He knew now that this was bigger than just an assault charge. There was a conspiracy at play, and his daughter was at the center of it. With renewed determination, Adam turned to his lawyer. "Get me out of here," he said, his voice filled with urgency. "We've got work to do. My daughter's life depends on it." The legal wheels turned swiftly. After a tense hour of negotiations and paperwork, Adam found himself released with a stern warning. The sun was just beginning to rise as he emerged from the station, his mind already racing with plans to uncover the truth and protect his daughter. Without wasting a moment, Adam headed straight back to the hospital. The early morning traffic was light, allowing him to make good time. As he pulled into the hospital parking lot, he steeled himself for what lay ahead. The battle was far from over, but now armed with his suspicions and determination, he was ready to fight back against the injustice threatening his daughter's life. The hospital corridors seemed different to Adam as he strode through them, his footsteps echoing with purpose. The events of the past few hours had transformed the once sterile environment into a battlefield, with his daughter's well-being as the prize. As he approached Joy's room, Adam was met with a new obstacle. Two burly security guards stationed outside the door, their faces set in grim determination. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter," one of the guards said firmly, holding up a hand to stop Adam's advance. "We have strict orders not to let you in." "Doctor's orders?" Adam's jaw tightened, his hands balling into fists at his sides. He opened his mouth to argue, his frustration boiling over, but before he could speak, he felt a steady hand on his shoulder. He turned to see James Reeves, his lawyer, standing beside him. "Let me handle this," Reeves said calmly, his tone low and controlled. He stepped forward, addressing the guards with a disarming smile. "Gentlemen, I'm Mr. Carter's attorney. I believe you'll find that denying a parent access to their minor child constitutes a violation of several statutes. Now we can escalate this to hospital administration, and possibly beyond, or you can step aside and grant my client a brief visit with his daughter. Isn't that right, Mr. Carter?" Adam's shoulders relaxed slightly, though his voice remained gruff as he answered, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on him. "Yes," he said, his words slow and deliberate. "Just a short visit." Reeves nodded reassuringly, turning back to the guards with a pointed look. "Well, what's it going to be?" The guards exchanged uncertain glances before reluctantly stepping aside. As Adam entered the room, his heart sank. Joy's condition had visibly deteriorated since he'd last seen her. Her skin was pale, almost ashen, and her breathing seemed labored. The various machines surrounding her bed beeped and whirred ominously. "Joy, baby," Adam whispered, rushing to her side. "What have they done to you?" Joy's eyes fluttered open, a weak smile crossing her face as she recognized her father. "Dad," she murmured, her voice barely audible. You came back. Adam took her hand, careful not to disturb the 4 lines. Of course I came back, sweetheart. I'm so sorry I left you, but I'm here now. And I'm going to fix this. I promise. I didn't use any drugs, Dad. You have to believe me, Joy whispered, her voice strained. They said. I don't know why they would do that to me. Adam hushed her gently, his fingers brushing through her hair in soothing strokes until she drifted back into a restless sleep. Her pale face and the dramatic change in her condition since his forced departure gnawed at him, each shallow breath stoking the fire of his growing suspicions. Dr. Calloway's name loomed large in his thoughts, the man's cold demeanor and earlier insults replaying like a haunting refrain. Something wasn't right. Adam could feel it in his gut. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. Whatever was happening to his daughter, he vowed silently, he would get to the bottom of it. Stepping out into the hallway, Adam spotted a familiar face, Nurse Nancy. She looked up as he approached, her expression a mix of relief and concern. Mr. Carter, she said in a hushed tone, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. I'm glad you're back. I've been worried about Joy. Adam leaned in close. Nurse Nancy, I need your help. Something's not right here. Joy's condition has gotten worse. Nancy's face paled slightly, but she nodded, her voice low and cautious. I've had my suspicions too, Mr. Carter. When Joy was first admitted, she was clear-headed and showed no signs of drug use. I would have noticed. And Joy's lab results? Adam asked, his tone sharp. They're saying she had drugs in her system, but I know that's not true. She hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one was listening before continuing. Yes, I can confirm that her lab report came back positive for marijuana use. The hospital laboratory documents are official, and without solid proof to the contrary, it's hard to challenge their findings. Her expression was a mix of worry and resignation as she added, I know this might not sit right with you, but without evidence we don't have much ground to stand on. This confirmation of his suspicions only heightened Adam's sense of urgency. I need to see Ryan, he said suddenly. The boy who was in the car with Joy, where is he? Nancy's face showed conflict as she hesitated. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter, she said, her voice tinged with regret. But I can't disclose that information. Patient privacy policies prevent me from sharing details about other patients, even room numbers, with non-family members. Adam nodded, understanding but frustrated. He thanked Nancy and moved away. His mind was already working on a new plan. He waited patiently, watching the nurses' station from a distance. When a code blue was called in another wing, drawing the staff away, Adam saw his opportunity. Quietly, he slipped behind the desk, his eyes scanning the computer screen. Suddenly, his breath caught in his throat. There, on the screen, was the patient's full name, Ryan Calloway. In that moment, everything clicked into place. Ryan was Dr. Richard Calloway's son. The doctor's vengeful behavior and personal stake in the situation all made sense now. Adam's mind raced with the implications of this discovery. After a moment of stunned realization, he refocused on his task. He noted Ryan's room number, 301, in the VIP wing and quietly slipped away from the station. With this new information, Adam made his way to the VIP wing. The contrast between this area and the regular hospital rooms was stark. Plush carpets, soft lighting, and an air of exclusivity. As Adam approached room 301, he noticed the door was slightly ajar. Peering inside, he saw a young man, Ryan, lying in a bed 3 times the size of Joy's. The room was filled with expensive equipment and comfortable furniture for visitors. Adam's eyes narrowed as he scanned the space, taking in every detail. On a nearby table, he spotted Ryan's medical chart. Glancing around to ensure no one was watching, Adam quickly entered the room and grabbed the chart. As he flipped through the pages, his suspicions were confirmed. Ryan's toxicology report showed high levels of marijuana in his system at the time of the accident. But unlike Joy's falsified report, This one bore the signatures of multiple lab technicians and doctors, everyone except Dr. Calloway. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but Adam knew he needed more evidence. He pulled out his phone and quickly snapped photos of the relevant pages in Ryan's chart. Just as he was replacing the chart, a noise in the hallway made him freeze. Footsteps were approaching. Adam looked around frantically for a place to hide, but the spacious room offered few options. As the footsteps grew louder, Adam made a split-second decision. He slipped behind the large privacy curtain surrounding Ryan's bed, holding his breath as the door opened fully. "And as you can see, Senator, we spare no expense for our VIP patients," came Dr. Calloway's oily voice. "Your son is receiving the very best care our hospital has to offer." Adam's eyes widened in surprise. "Senator?" He peered through a small gap in the curtain to see Dr. Calloway leading an older man in an expensive suit into the room. "I appreciate that, Richard," the man, presumably Senator Calloway, replied. "But I'm more concerned about the legal implications of this mess. You're sure the Carter girls' test results will hold up under scrutiny?" Dr. Calloway's face twisted into a smug smile. "Absolutely, Senator. I personally oversaw the adjustments to her lab work. As far as anyone knows, she was the one who drugged Ryan and caused the accident. Your son's reputation is safe?" Adam's blood boiled as he listened to the two men casually discuss framing his daughter. It took every ounce of self-control he possessed not to burst out from behind the curtain and confront them. Good, Senator Calloway nodded. "And what about the father? I heard there was some trouble earlier." Dr. Calloway waved a dismissive hand. "A minor setback. The biker trash lost his temper and assaulted me. He's been dealt with. By the time this is over, both he and his daughter will be thoroughly discredited." As the two men continued their conversation, Adam's mind raced. He now had proof of the conspiracy against Joy, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. He needed hard evidence of Dr. Calloway's tampering with the lab result. When the doctor and the senator finally left the room, Adam emerged from his hiding place, his face set with grim determination. A plan was forming, but he knew he'd need help to pull it off. Quietly slipping out of Ryan's room, Adam made his way back to the nurse's station where Nancy was working. "Nancy," he said in a low, urgent voice, "I need your help. We're going to expose Dr. Calloway and save my daughter. Are you with me?" Adam's hands trembled as he relayed everything he had overheard and seen in Ryan's room to Nancy. His voice was low but filled with urgency, each word laced with anger and disbelief. "They're setting her up," Adam said, his jaw clenched. "They altered her lab result. That bastard, Dr. Calloway, it's a complete setup." Nancy's face paled as Adam's words sank in. She shook her head, her expression one of shock and disbelief. That can't be true," she stammered. "I know Dr. Calloway has a reputation for being ruthless, but tampering with medical records? Framing a child? That's criminal." "It's not just criminal, it's monstrous," Adam snapped, his voice rising. "They're destroying her life to save his. And you heard what they're doing with the lab reports. It's not a mistake, it's deliberate. They're manipulating everything." Nancy looked up at Adam, conflict clear in her eyes. She knew helping him could jeopardize her job, maybe even her career. But as she thought about Joy, about the clear injustice being perpetrated, she made her decision. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her voice steady with resolve.